Lions fans, let's talk some. I'm going to get into Matthew Stafford. And some may say this is my continuance of putting the fault or the blame at him. And why I say that he is, in my opinion, the reason for them not going forward. And it's not typically the way that the listener maybe listen what may assume. But I'm going to say it this way. Okay, I go back to not when he was drafted, because if you look at the talent that came out the year he was drafted, he was clearly the best pick, and they hit the nail on the head when they drafted Stafford. Now the problem that I have with the continuance of Stafford is the point when you have to determine who's going to be the face of your franchise. If you're saying Stafford is going to be the face of your franchise, then you're going to protect them in every which way. I'm talking about from the ownership on down. That means not just from, you're protecting him because he is your cash revenue. This is where you bank it off. Even if you win or you lose, whatever, you're basing off of him, okay? Not just because he was number one pick, but, you're deeming him the face of your franchise. So, okay, the year they drafted him, they just came off a 0-16 season, right? All right, so the next year, I believe, how did it go? The next year, I think they won like 2 games or something like that with Stafford. I'm not sure, and I believe that's how they. Wait, I may need some help with this. Let me do a little research for a second. Okay, I did a little research on something that I wanted to talk about. When they reached when they was when they signed it when they signed it when Stafford was drafted. Of course, they was 0-16, and then I believe with Stafford they won 2 games or something like that, and I believe that's when they went and they drafted Ndamukong Suh. A few years later, the uh, of course, before all that, they have Calvin Johnson and so forth with no quarterback. And all right. Well, the point of me why I'm putting emphasis on the Stafford deal. I mean, as him being the question becomes, who do you want to be the face of your franchise? At the time that, because we're going back in history, we're going back in time when you have to look when you drafted Matthew Stafford at the place where they drafted him at number one pick, and you're talking about where at the time that they drafted him, there was no rookie cap, no rookie structure, a salary cap structure. So you basically paying them top dollar, and you're talking about making a cap hit, whatever. So with that being said, they got the right pick in Stafford, containing definitely, specifically relating to that draft. Yeah, he was the best talent coming out. Sam Bradford, it was reported that he didn't want to come here, so I believe that's why he stayed in college. So of course, you would have drafted Bradford over Stafford, in my opinion. I would have, but I believe they got the right pick in Stafford. But here's the problem with that is that Stafford is going to be due for an extension. And by the Lions not being able to orchestrate a team around Stafford early on, like soon they got Stafford, they only won like 2 games. And next, they in the top 5 again for a draft pick. And that's when they drafted Suh. Great pick. Now, here's the problem. Now, here's the situation that I propose towards the fans. Who do you give the extension to? If you have to make a choice between the two down the road, you have to give a choice of the two. Now, I believe Calvin Johnson is already on the team, so you could take that in consideration if you want to. You can actually resign Calvin too as well, or you can let him go. My personal preference is to let Calvin go. But the coin flip becomes who you give the rookie extension to. Is it Matthew Stafford or Ndamukong Suh? because clearly you can't afford to pay all three. That's okay. Of course, they made the choice to keep Calvin. You can't keep Calvin, Sue, and Stafford and actually have a 53-man roster. It's not going to happen. So who do you make the face of your franchise, and who do you extend? I guess by extending, you're making them the face of your franchise. In my personal opinion, as decent as Stafford may have been as in terms of coming out of the draft, in terms of based upon the talent that came out of his draft year, and by him actually being more successful than them, I would actually let Stafford go. Then when it came up to giving the first extension, or when it comes to like, okay, of course, you're talking about in upper management, they have to make the decision what we're going to do with Stafford come down the road. We already got Calvin on the books. Do we extend Calvin? And we are in the top 5 again, and we drafting Ndamukong Suh. So you got 3 on a rookie scale, and you have to determine who's going to be the face of your franchise, who's going to go forward, who's going to put from a business standpoint, who's putting the people in the seats, who's actually can actually help you to win, who can give you a face of your franchise, who can actually give you respectability. Out of all the 3, you got Calvin, you got Stafford, and you got Sue. Which one do you make the face of your franchise? Personally, for myself, I'm going with the Ndamukong Suh, and this is where I say where they missed it at. Now, could they have resigned all 3? Possibly. I don't know how much wiggle room they'd be able to do with anybody else. They would definitely have to hit in their drafts. And clearly, if you look at each one of those drafts, when they drafted Calvin, when they drafted Sue and Stafford, if you look at their surrounding draft pick selections with those 3, they missed it. Maybe with the exception of Javid Best. He was pretty decent with the Ndamukong Suh draft. He was pretty decent with that. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know. You kind of, yeah. So, and even with that was short lived. So you can't really see much of an investment from that. But anyway, I say the reason why I put the blame on Stafford, not the blame as in like, okay, he's the reason why they can't win a championship. I'm saying I'm going from a foundation standpoint. He's a tough piece to build off of from the moment that he came into the organization, whatever, for 2 reasons up to now. For 2 reasons, because how they built the team around him, they didn't do it the smart way. Of course, you're talking about the brain thrush of management at the time when they drafted him. I don't believe they knew what they were doing. I don't. And plus, at the same time, okay, you had Calvin Johnson on the books, and you're dealing with Matt Millen mess of his draft picks, of missing on draft picks. Maybe with the exception of Calvin Johnson. I think that's the only one that he did actually hit on. But then Mayhew did a somewhat decent job, but it's like the draft picks that he would pick, the good ones that he would make it like in the first round, maybe possibly the second round, he did good, but then he would cancel it out. But of course, you're talking about the best draft that he had was with, Ziggy and Slay and so forth. So you had a mess up top, and then you have you're really limited to what you can build around with your investment, which is Stafford. So that's why I would have said, which one is easier to build around? Is it easier to build around a great defense or a great offense? And of course, you're talking about a great offense. You're talking about starting with your quarterback. Which one is easier to do? Build a great defense off a great player, or build a great offense off a somewhat above average quarterback? They had a great piece in Ndamukong Suh to make the face of their franchise. He was a rare gem. He was Aaron Donald before Aaron Donald was Aaron Donald. So, for the Lions, that was. So that's why I believe where they missed it at with the Stafford deal. But the reason why somebody could say, well, why are you still pinning this on Stafford? Because when you think about Stafford's contract as a rookie, it's coming up, whatever. By the time they gotta make a decision about, do they extend? You already got Calvin on extension. Well, Stafford is coming up next. So, and then you got Ndamukong Suh coming right behind them. Which one are you going to extend? Now, of course, Ndamukong Suh is about the money, so he's not taking any discounts. He don't probably want to be here, but he be here if you, of course, you may have to overpay him to keep him. So what do? Stafford is a guy that you can pretty much, he's a great guy that you love, a great personality that you would love to have around because he don't give you any problems. More so than you probably may get out in the Ndamukong Suh and so forth, right? So you have to make this decision. Who do you make as your face of your franchise? Is it going to be defense? Is it going to be offense? So they chose offense. But with that offense, they were very limited to how they protected their asset. If you made the choice to say Stafford is going to be the face of my team, my franchise, how they treated him and how they continually to this day, how they treat him is brutal. So the fans will say, like, well, they're treating him wrong, like, because they're losing, they're not doing this. I'm like, well, in comparison to all the GMs that they had, let's go back for the past three. You could start with Quinn, go back to Mayhew, to McMillan. Out of the three, my personal favorite, of course, is Bob Quinn. I believe what Quinn has done for this franchise, he did far more enough for his job for the next person to come over and build off of. If Quinn would have came to this organization the way that he's leaving it, he would have been by far successful. By far successful. He had to clean up all of Mayhew mess and all Millen mess. He had to clean it out. And he did a fantastic job, in my opinion. Now, it kind of restricts you from actually getting the top tier talent when all your assets that you have is not really much assets. So all the pieces that he brought in here is actually to replace the mistakes that was here. So it's like it's a rebuild on top of a rebuild. But the fans will see it as that they have some mediocre success with the 9-7, 9-7, maybe 11-5, 9-7, 97, 79, so forth, whatever the case may be. They had some success with that, and they think they're successful. But the talent that they had that success off of wasn't going to be sustained. In other words, they was that's considered like backup talent that you're going to have to pay high premium to keep them here. And Bob Quinn made a decision like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather have guys that I can draft and I can build off of. And people will say, they make it to be like a yes man type deal. When it's okay, what owner doesn't want their business to run like an old machine without hiccups, without complaints and so forth? You want to get rid of the loose ends. So anybody that's going to be destructive towards the vision, you get rid of it, regardless if you got some minute successes or whatever. But you let it go. It's part of it. So I say all that to say, go back to the Stafford deal. And I'm asking this to all the fans: who do you want as your head, as your face of your franchise? And of course you're saying that we're going back in time. If you had to make a choice back in time, who do you make the face of your franchise? Is it Matthew Stafford or is it Ndamukong Suh? Never mind Calvin Johnson, because they proved that you can move on from Calvin Johnson. They drafted a Kenny Galladay. They brought in a Marvin Jones, and they got a T.J. Hockenson. It's clear that they can move on from a Calvin Johnson. But Ndamukong Suh is the area where they haven't been able to move on. Matter of fact, in Lions history, since I've known them, since they actually was winning championships, I'm going back to the Jerry Ball Jerry Ball era of the Lions when they was running the 3-4, and I think they had Dan Owens and some other guys up there up front. And they linebacker was subpar. Even with that, what I'm saying is, have they ever from that time that it went, the time they went to the NFC title game in '91 all the way up to now, have you ever seen a more disruptive defensive lineman than Ndamukong Suh in the Lions uniform? I'll wait. If so, then I'll stand corrected. The point of what I'm saying is, the Ndamukong Suh was so rare for the Lions to get. It was so rare. Of course, you got him at a high premium because where you drafted him, and of course there was no rookie cap scale, and so. But at the same time, You have Stafford on the books. You got Calvin Johnson on the books. You got Matthew Stafford. You got to look down the future road. You're looking down the road, and you have to say, okay, all right, take into account that he's going to get an extension, and Sue's come right behind him. Which one are we going to keep? I'm taking Sue, and this is where I believe they dropped the ball at. This is where they dropped the ball. Now, then somebody said they got nobody to throw the ball to got nobody to throw the ball to Calvin. That's why Calvin is not. I wouldn't have Calvin on my team. I'm trading that pick if I can. But Sue is the guy that I'm making the face of my franchise. Now, if I could be wrong. Now, forgive me if I am. When Sue was here, they were coming to see Sue more than they were coming to see Stafford. He gave this team an identity that you had to respect. If you look at Stafford's career, I mean, this is why I pin it on him. He's not a dominant force that you have to respect. Now, don't get me wrong. In certain times, in certain areas where he excels at, of course you respect him. Or you're talking about maybe the last 2 minutes or whatever, or when he has to put the pedal to the metal and he has to get down to work, then you respect him. Otherwise, you don't have to respect him. But that's where I said if they make him Matthew Stafford the face of the franchise, they did it wrong because they're not capitalized off his strengths. Okay, if he's good in the 2-minute drill, or if he's good at the point of putting the pedal to the metal, if he's good at that extent, well then through the course of the game, you shouldn't be throwing the ball on third and 2. You shouldn't be doing anything like that. You should be establishing the run game. So this is where it makes what Bob Quinn did that much greater. Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, what they did was far more greater. Now, somebody could say, well, go back to Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell and even Jim Schwartz. You look at their running game, right, in comparison to what Matt Patricia's running game was. Okay, now, of course, you could say that's Bevel, but all right, look what Bevel is doing with, all right, whatever, I won't do that. I'm going to say Matt Patricia's the head coach. I'm going up under him. So which running game would you prefer to have? Is it Reggie Bush and Joy Bell? Is it Javid Best and Matthew Stafford? Is it? Let's go this way. Is it Javid Best and Matthew Stafford? Is it Reggie Bush, Joy Bell, Matthew Stafford, or is it DeAndre Swift and you could say what's his name? You could say Adrian Peterson and so forth when they was running the ball effectively. Right? Which one do you prefer to have? Which quarterback running back tandem? Which one you prefer to have? Now, in my personal opinion, we're going based upon what they had to show. Now, of course, you got a sample size of what you have with DeAndre Swift. You got a sample size of what you have with Javid Best, and you have somewhat minute success with Reggie Bush and Joy Bell. Reggie Bush will get hurt and so forth. So you got to pretty much let's say that you got pretty much an even Steven package of one of the three that you could select from. You give me DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson with the Matthew Stafford that I have now. Now the reason why I'm saying that because this goes back to what Bob Quinn has did for this organization. He got you a left tackle. I don't know if he got you a left guard yet. But he got you a center. He got you a right tackle in Halapoulivaati. Even regardless of what people done, people got to take in consideration that once he got hurt, they replaced him with Crosby, and Crosby got replaced with Nelson. It was a shifting. There was never nothing consistent because somebody got hurt. Even when Ragnar got dinged up a little bit, and Jonah Jackson had to go from right guard to left guard, and where they got somewhat success from that. Then one of the players comes back, then you got to plug that in, and it became like a shuffling deal. So nothing really is solidified with Halapoulivaati. So I got him at my right tackle. I got a right guard and Jonah Jackson. I got me a starting center, I'm almost going to say all pro, not just a pro bowler, but all pro center, and Ragnow. And I got a serviceable tackle and left and Decker. So all I got to do is plug in a left guard, and I'm good. This is what Bob Quinn did. So in comparison to the years that Matt Millen was here, in comparison to the years that Mayhew was here, it's clear, in my personal opinion, and the people say that he missed it with the Amendola, he missed it with the Trey Flowers, he missed it with the Jamie Collins. Now, that's what you call a disruptive locker room. Is based upon that could be the head coach's responsibility, not to get the players to buy into a system per se, but to create an atmosphere for them to buy into. That's why I believe that Matt Patricia was a little bit ahead. Let me say, how can I say it? He was a little bit arrogant of himself. You're coming from a place that's successful, and you're going to a place that does have no success. And so you're going to carry over what you know to an environment that doesn't know pretty much anything that you've been through. So you come with this chip on your shoulder, and you alienate the whole locker room. You alienate the organization. You alienate everything. But if you look what Bob Quinn has done, he cleaned out all the mess, all of the mistakes of Mayhew and Miller. He cleaned it all out. Now, whoever comes in here now, they have pretty much a foundation to build off of. Yeah, regardless if you keep Stafford or not, you got a foundation. That's why I'm harping on the fact that what Quinn and Patricia did, they cleaned out all the mess. Now, people say the Glover Quinns, the Diggs, and all that stuff. Y'all can say that it's considered talent, like from y'all for y'all standards. I just don't. I think they're average. I don't think that, I think they was above average because they came to a place that had no success. So it's like they're above average. It's like average somewhere else. Because I'm in the top 5 of their each individual their positions. It's like, okay, your best 3 players that they so-called arguably let go. You're talking about Darius Slay, Golden Tate. But I can't say Golden. Yeah, Golden Tate, Darius Slay, Golden Tate, and you could say Glover Quinn. Say those are your best 3 that they let go up under the Quinn Patricia era. Those are your best 3. Were they the top 5 at their position? If so, they made the mistake. If not, then let them go. Were they the top 5 at their position? Because they arguably going to want it. They will have wanted top 5 money at their position. Now, I'm talking about top 5 of 1 year. I'm talking about through the time that you would see their top 5. By the time their contract was up, or whatever case may be, get close to their contract being up, were they top 5 at their position? Not top 10, top 5. And if so, then the Lions missed it. If they didn't, they let them go. It's one thing to be disruptive in the locker room. I get that. Then there's another thing that you're disruptive on the field because you're not you are high. In other words, you're overrated based upon a lower market. That there was nothing here. There is a bunch of Matt Millen and Mayhew. What they established here, there was nothing. There was no really. What was the standard? The standard that you had was in Ndamukong Suh. That was the standard that you had. You could say Calvin Johnson, but Calvin Johnson to me is like a luxury pick. I can live without that. He's not Barry Sanders-esque. Barry Sanders is different from Calvin Johnson from this perspective, is that you put the ball in Barry's hands and he's off to the races. You can't do an end around with Calvin and Calvin, do what he did as you're throwing him the ball. And even it's a little different. Barry Sanders was so incredibly rare. Majority of his runs, even though there was a lot of, he messed up a lot of times because he improvised a lot, but he had no offensive line, nothing to believe in, nothing to follow. You could say Kevin Glover and Lomas Brown if you want to, but nah, I'm sorry, no. So Barry Sanders was unique in that regard that he was the face of your franchise because he did it, his hand on the ball, and he made something happen out of nothing. With Calvin, you had to throw him the ball, Even if you had to throw it up, okay, I give him credit. He went to go get it to a certain extent, but at the same time, there's a definite difference of of facing your franchise between Calvin and Barry. So outside of Barry, give me Ndamukong Suh. The Ndamukong Suh immediately affected the Lions organization without having the ball in his hand, just by playing the point of attack. You haven't had nobody nowhere near that since then. Now, I say all that to say this. He should have been the guy they invested in. I understand he kicked the Green Bay Packer guy and stuffed on him and all that, but he gave this team an identity. Stafford never gave this team an identity. You look at the best quarterbacks that have won, or the best quarterbacks that's considered elite, they give their team an identity based off their play. So you could say, if Matthew Stafford's best quality is his competitiveness, this team doesn't always compete on offense. This team does. They're supposed to follow his drum, to follow the beat of his drum. I mean, so offense doesn't compete. It goes as he goes. So if that's his whole organization, as a team, it goes as he goes because he's the face. If you notice, the team went as Ndamukong Suh went. Of course, you get the occasional guys that would jump off sides and everything else. Then you replace them. So you're talking about when they're in the playoffs and everything else, you can replace that. So they did that wrong. They made that decision wrong, and I believe that's what cost the franchise. Because if they had the coin flip between the two of picking which is going to be the face of your franchise, that's where they missed it. And they put all the eggs in Stafford basket, but at the same time, Stafford, he doesn't motivate this team to be competitive. He goes with the blow of the wind. Don't get me wrong. He's not troublesome. He's not a problem. He's a guy that you would love to have on a team that's already established. He's that type of guy. He's not the guy that you build a franchise off of from nothing. I'm talking about Detroit Lions nothing. I'm not talking about like a Kansas City Chiefs that has some success, or San Francisco 49ers that has some success, or Denver, or a franchise that has some success. You're talking about the last success that this team has ever had was in 91, and that was a game away from a Super Bowl. Stafford is not a guy, particularly how the ownership done it, how they hired the help, and everything else. Millen and draft and Mayhew did, but how they drafted Stafford and how they built off of Stafford is how they incredibly did it wrong. And they did him wrong for he was nowhere near he can succeed. So with that being said, I'm proposing this question to the Lions fans. If you had to pick between the two to be the face of your franchise, Calvin Johnson is on your books, but you have to pick between the two to be the face of your franchise. In other words, who are you going to give the extension to first and only? Is it going to be Matthew Stafford or Ndamukong Suh? All right, Lions fans, I salute.